Around the third or fourth script that we were shooting, there was a scene where I was supposed to sneak up behind somebody, a villain in this case, and pull my phaser and hit him. My phaser's my gun, right? You got that? Hit him on the head with the butt of it to render him unconscious. That's the way it was written in the script. When we approached the scene, I said to the director, this is archaic. This is really Western, you know, to pull a gun and hit a guy on the head from behind. He said, what do you want to do? And I said, this man's an alien. We don't know anything about aliens. We can say anything we want. We can make the audience believe anything we want about an alien. You know, let's use our imaginations. A man could have very special knowledge of the human anatomy that hasn't even been discovered yet, or he may have some special power that only Vulcans have, you see. Mm-hmm. I said, why don't I just apply pressure to a certain area of his neck and shoulder here and pinch a little bit, and he goes unconscious, you see. Well, the director bought it, and that's the way we did it. Producers saw it in the rushes, the dailies, the next day, and said, that's a great idea, let's keep using that. It became kind of a traditional thing, and we had great fun with it. And I avoided what I considered physical violence, cracking people on the head. You know, it was a merciful way of knocking out an enemy.
Of course, you're being violent, you realize. You're only splitting hairs to make your own self feel
but you get some kind of sense of progress, some sense of sophistication, at least, you know. So you're not running around punching people and, you know, chasing and running and hitting and jumping and all of that. They call it action. I don't mind action if it is organic and vital to the script, if it makes some interesting or meaningful statement. But used dimensionally, creatively, and with integrity, I say yes, by all means, demonstrate the horror of evil when it really goes to work and show what's going on here. But as a means of relating to people, as a means of solving problems, no.
Violence brought respect. Respect brought peace.
No.
The reason that this blows my mind is the explanation that Leonard Nimoy gave about how to write a proper character, which goes in complete contrast to a recent interview given by Peter Dinklage, which said that, oh, Game of Thrones is about dragons spewing fire. Why are people complaining about the ending? It's fantasy. You can write whatever you want. People shouldn't complain. And Leonard Nimoy actually states, yeah, sure, you can write whatever, but it needs to be believable by the audience. In other words, he explains that because his character is a Vulcan, he can have knowledge of an anime that's not even discovered yet, and the audience would believe it because the way the show was written up till that point. But if Spock would have started shooting lightning from his fingertips and flying around, the audience would not believe that. Even though he is an alien, it's due to the way that the story was written up till that point, it would have broken immersion. And this is the reason that the ending of Game of Thrones is so bad, is that the way the story was written up till that point makes no sense, even if the show has dragons that spew fire and whatnot. So this is the different way of writing that people had in the past. It was, is it believable by the audience? I mean, sure, we can write whatever we want, but is it believable? And then it was the theme that they were going with. So in the theme of Star Trek, it was humanity at its finest. The world that the viewer wanted to be a part of. I mean, I remember all of my friends wanting to be part of the Federation, being on their own starship and flying around and being friends with the crew and experiencing new worlds and civilizations. And it's a world where you don't need anything because you got replicators that can give you everything. So the only pursuit is the pursuit of knowledge and the discovery of the unknown. That is the fascination. And because of that, violence had to take a backseat. Because these people were so sophisticated, they were just beyond violence. I mean, they would do it when needed, like Leonard Nimoy explains in this interview. But it was like a last resort, and most episodes from Star Trek, they focus around people talking and discussing philosophical points. But the new writers don't understand this. The new writers, they don't care about the theme or what makes the IP special. They only care about the brand in order to do a bait and switch. It's like, hey, you like Star Trek? Oh, we're making Star Trek Discovery. And when you're watching it, you don't get that Star Trek vibe. It's a completely different show. They would probably get less flack if they created a whole new IP. You know, people used to do that. I mean, people used to watch Star Trek And they were like, this is interesting. Why don't we create Stargate? It's still a sci-fi show, but it's got different themes. It's got different elements to it. I mean, it's still about, like, human beings exploring the galaxy. I mean, the main idea is still there. But it's a more serious, more grounded in reality show. And if they were to do something like that today, they would not get the flack that they're getting, because the fans are upset. And I remember watching a TED Talk. Yeah, I know, I do watch the TED Talks. There was this lady who worked at DC Comics, and she was one of the first women within the industry. Now, she says that she hasn't met any sexismus, that all the men around her were actually very kind and nice and tried to help her out, much to the dismay of the people watching the TED Talk that expected her to say different things. But what really impressed me about it, and why was she considered such an amazing writer, is that when she got into the comic industry, she knew nothing about comics. She got in there through nepotism. But she wanted the job, so she wanted to learn what comic books are about. And what came down to it, she figured out that comic books are really about the battle between the villain and the superhero. And everything else is the extra that has to make that battle more interesting. So according to her, Batman beating up the Joker who tries to rob a bank, that's a comic book. That is the essence. Like, that is the bare minimum. The villain does something bad and the superhero stops him, and there needs to be a physical altercation. So what she did is that she didn't know anything about fights, and she went to a gym in order to do boxing. Because she wanted to know how the physics interact when the human fist punches that punching bag. She wanted to know how it feels like getting punched. She wanted to know how it's like throwing punches. And that made her an excellent writer. Because now she understood these things and she could put it into her work. That's how passionate she was. And that is why back then writers were a lot better, because they really cared about entertaining the audience. One of the main problems with new writers is that they don't care about entertaining the audience. They care about lecturing the audience. They got their own politics, their own views, and they want you to have those views or stop watching their show. And you can see this with Star Trek Discovery, because they legitimately brought an actual standing Democrat as a cameo. I mean, what other proof do you want? You know, people aren't upset that politics is being brought into Star Trek, because Star Trek was political. It did discuss political themes. What people are upset is the preachy nature of it. Picard wasn't preachy. I'm watching the Next Generation, season 3 right now. Picard never comes off as preachy, arrogant, smug, better than the people around him. I mean, he has his views, he does hold speeches, but it feels like the speeches that he has are open-ended. It makes you think. It doesn't just dictate, okay, this is right, this is wrong, vote Democrat. And I don't want people to misunderstand me. This is not about Democrats bad or anything like that. I mean, if the show was like vote right wing, you know, vote Republican, it would have the same impact. Like, you're alienating half of the audience. I mean, half of the people that watch it are probably going to be left-leaning, the other half are going to be right-leaning. Why do you need to alienate half when you can make a show that brings everyone together? Again, watch the previous Star Trek. You can enjoy it whether you're a left-leaning person or a right-leaning person. It doesn't matter. There are multiple themes being discussed there that you're probably going to agree with or disagree with some of them. But at the end of the day, it's a show that's made to entertain people, not to preach at people. And that is the main problem. So to recapitulate, the main theme isn't there. The writers don't care about it. And secondly, even the actors understood back in the day that just because it's sci-fi and you have spaceships flying around or dragons breathing fire, at the end of the day, it has to be believed by the audience. If the audience doesn't believe it, then you're a bad writer. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you in the comment section. Take care.